And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Al-Ahram Managing Editor, Mr. Mohamed Ezz Eldin. Mr. Ezz Eldin, welcome to Q News. Sir, what prompted President Donald Trump to issue threats of dire consequences to Iran?
Certainly, the reference of the Houthis threat. Trump considers the Houthis that they are arms mobilized and moved by Iran, and therefore sabotage the American interest as well as the strategic ally Israel. And it is kind of a pressure upon Iran regarding the nuclear program, and these threats aren't new. And he had issued these statements years ago, but this goes in line with the attacks on the airbase or the American bases by the Houthis that is justified. Specifically, sending a message to Iran, and in the meantime, it supported the internal within America to support his attacks against the Houthis.
Well, how did the recent Houthi attacks on the USS Harry S. Truman influence the U.S. military actions in Yemen?
Certainly, the effect is tactical, even or if the USS Harry Truman has changed its path away for these attacks, and it seems that they are unexpected in this time, or it is not in the enough estimation to respond in the sources of fire following the announcement of America that they would launch the missiles from the Truman. So the change of its course is a tactical one, and as a result of to continue the attacks in vertical. And in addition to the traditional tactical missiles, the matter is related to the military strategies by America, or with respect to the operation that wouldn't have an impact or effect unless the American Navy is suffering from issues regarding in dealing with the sources of the threats, which is another matter, and I do not think that it exists directly or what it is promoted by the American side.
Well, how has the U.S. justify its recent military escalation against the Houthis in Yemen? Was the attack of the Houthis on the USS Harry Truman and their attacks on the shipping routes, were these enough to justify the recent military escalation?
I think what triggered the attacks directly are the threats made by the leaders of the Houthis with regarding that we resume the attacks against the Israeli ships in the navy or the water strains if Israel would resume the war. And this is a matter that triggered the attacks, but the American plans are orchestrated by its allies that is based on protecting all the water courses and streams, particularly in the Red Sea. The timing is related to the Houthi threat against Israel, but the strategy of execution is related on the efficiency, on the return of the air carriers into the Red Sea to support the Houthis attacks in threaten the naval movement that third of the war trade is going through, which goes a direct threat of the American threat and their allies in the region.
Mr. Ezz Eldin, what could we expect in the upcoming hours from President Trump's threats of the dire consequences to Hamas, the Houthis, and Iran?
Certainly, let me say something. On the ground, I think there are threats that close to respond verbally, but tactically. On the ground, the Houthis cannot represent a real threat but into or against the civil chips. But in case of any other types of attacks, even the Israelis already made some air strikes, but announced lately in some areas in Yemen for the first time, which is considered a breakthrough with respect to Hamas or the situations in the Palestinian territories. I consider realistically that any attempt of Houthis intervention in these matters, firstly, won't lead to any objectives on the field. On the other way, or on the contrary, to have some unrealistic pretext to punish the Palestinian, firstly, and secondly, the Yemeni or the civilian Yemeni that is suffering from some attacks, according to the use of the very thermal bombs, in addition to the very destructive bombs and reaching some missile bases on the ground that would lead an unbearable destruction of the infrastructure as they are old. Ultimately, either the Hamas or the Houthis or Hezbollah, so the Palestinian peoples, along with the Yemeni and Lebanese people, are the vulnerables for such attacks.
Well, sir, one final question. How might the recent US military actions in Yemen affect future negotiations with Iran regarding its nuclear program?
Certainly, I consider it as a message of warning from the American side, meaning that the Houthi armies are being cut off. The upcoming period, the direct confrontation will be with Iran directly, not only through the sanctions, but a green light might be executed for Israel to execute a strike as named by Israel, a preventive strike against the nuclear facilities that would enter the matter to the very complicated paths on the Gulf, not only on the Gulf area, but for the whole world. It is a threat of and to get the allies on top of which, such as Israel, along with the whole region, regarding the navy or the maritime movement in the region, and to use it as a bargain chip with regard to the nuclear negotiation to prevent it of the possession of nuclear arms. The matter is politically and militarily, and to achieve another objectives along with the main allies regarding the maritime movement in the Red Sea in general.
Well, from Cairo, that was Al Ahram managing editor, Mr. Mohamed Ezz Eldin. Mr. Ezz Eldin, thank you very much for joining us.